Hey everybody, and welcome to ChiuStream, where we talk about art and life as an artist. I'm your host Bobby Chu, and I also have on here my co-host Matt Johnson. Hey Matt.
Hey everybody, how's it going today?
Awesome, right on. If it is your first time on the stream, we want to let you know that this is interactive. So you can feel free to ask us questions or whatever you like to do, and we will actually hear them as long as you send them to Slido.com. It's a free thing that we've been using. We have no affiliation with them, but the greatest thing of all is if you want to use this service and ask us some questions, you don't need to sign up for any account. So you could just go on there anonymous or whatever you want to do, ask us a bunch of questions. And the other cool thing is that uh, we, as the community, get to vote on the questions that we want to see answered, which is always very helpful. And it is really dark where I am. Let me see if I can. Whoa! Now it just looks like I turned on the sun. But okay, there we go. Now, for today's stream, we always have a theme, which has been really wonderful. Uh, and the theme of today is mistakes, common mistakes that especially beginners have. I was saying initially when I was writing this up, I was thinking beginners. This is what beginners go through. But then I realized some of these things I didn't really realize until 5 years being a professional and things like that. So uh, these are just common mistakes, okay? Common mistakes beginners do, or beginner artists do, or, it's better just to listen and check yourself, I think. Okay, so we're going to go into the very first one here. And the very first one is analyze instead of copying. Now, this is one that the super talented Kay Asadera, she brought this up. I was talking to her over lunch today, and I was saying, what are the common mistakes that beginners do that you see all the time? And she goes, common mistake, easy. They, a lot of times, they try to learn through copying and not enough analyzing. Like, why are you making that brushstroke? Why are you doing that next? Really trying to delve into the thinking behind the actions, right? And that way, if you get the thinking down and you can start to think like a professional artist, that's way more powerful than being able to copy a professional artist. Okay, so number two there is show through action, not words. This isn't, this one is kind of like one of the mistakes that I see just generally people do, not necessarily beginners. But a lot of times, what we do is we talk a bunch of stuff and we don't actually follow through, or we talk a bunch of stuff and we don't do as much as we said we would do. It would be much better if we didn't say anything at all, just did it, and then when it got done, then we tell people. You know, that one is really, really powerful because just like, remember when we were first talking about the Lightbox Expo, Matt,
Yeah.
and like um, the fact that I wasn't so happy with another event that I went to, and I was like,
hmm
you know what? I am going to start my own thing. I didn't really say that I was going to start my own thing. I said something to the effect of, I'm going to do something about this. Now, that's something that you don't do unless you are for sure going to do it. And that was something that I was very prepared to do to create my own convention. I had all the right ingredients, I had all the right partners and pieces lined up. So that's the only reason why I would say such a thing. If I just thought of it and I wasn't totally invested, I didn't totally do my research and homework and everything, don't say anything. It's
Yeah.
far better to show through actions, not words. And the other great thing about this tip is because most people don't do that. Most people, they say a bunch of stuff, and sometimes they do it. Most of the times they don't. That kind of thing. When everybody's doing one thing, look for the advantage of doing the other thing, and that would be show through word or show through actions, not words. Okay. Third thing on here, and feel free to chime in if anytime you want. Okay, Matt. I'm just gonna keep going here.
You know what? Real quick, I
Yeah.
wanted to mention. Speaking of that moment with Lightbox, where you put out that open letter uh, that went out, and it was about how you didn't have a good experience, and I think that would have been received completely differently if it wasn't followed up quickly by action. Like it would have just been like a internet rant or something like that, and instead there was action behind it. So it's not just that people take your criticisms of things differently. Oh, that guy's just complaining versus oh, that's someone who's actually going to do something about it. That's great.
Well, and on that point, Matt, the convention, the Lightbox Expo thing, that's something that I've thought about for a very, very, very long time as well. So, like, a lot of things were in motion, uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when I made that video, and I wouldn't have made that video if there wasn't any alternative.
Mm,
Everybody does their own thing, however they want to do it, and that's totally fine. I totally respect that. But for me, it's like I don't want to complain about something just for the sake of complaining. I don't generally want to complain. And it's very rare that I would, but there are certain there the thing that I was going through in my head is there a line in the sand? Okay, we don't want to be complainy. We don't want to complain in general. We want to
right.
look on the bright side of things and all that good stuff. We don't want to say negative things, but is there a line? Should there be a line drawn in the sand? When there's just too much kind of negative things going on, should you then say something? And so that was the question I was going through in my head. And finally, I came up with the answer yes, I should. Number one, because the line was crossed way too many times. And number two, I have an alternative. I plan on doing something about this.
That's great. I think you have to have that line in a positive way too when you're going to try to when you're talking about things that you want to learn how to do or things that you want to accomplish. You also have to have that line where you say, "Okay, now's the point where I either have to stop talking about it or I have to do something about it." Right? Like, gotta stop saying how I wish I was this good or I wish I was as good as this artist. And it still feels kind of hot air complaining unless you take action on it once you get to a certain point. I think that's important to remember about positive things that we want to do in our lives too.
Yeah, and also on that note, like you don't have to keep going on about it as well. So after
Mm,
that, I don't want to mention the convention's name. I don't want to, really bring it
right.
up at all unless it's some sort of educational point to be made. So there we go. There's number two. Number three,
Awesome.
let's take a look at number three. It's practicing our communication skills. Now, this is in there because of the fact that number one, um, we have all these classes and things. Generally, artists don't really take them, but classes and things where it's like you have to give a presentation to the rest of the class. You have to, maybe it's a class just literally on speaking and things like that. Yet we don't have a lot of lessons on hearing, on
On
listening.
hearing.
Yeah, just listening, because that's half of the communication, isn't it? If nobody listened to anything, we wouldn't be communicating with ourselves at all. So, for that reason, I put in practicing our communication skills, because usually we don't really know how to listen very well, let alone speak very well. And then there's the fact that, hey, on a general, on a very general kind of statement, um, a lot of us artists, myself included, we became good artists because we were okay with being by ourselves, with not talking for hours. I was totally okay. Uh, my parents would tell me, yeah, I just gave you a pair of socks and you would play with these pair of socks for like 3 hours. You wouldn't say anything to anybody. Um, and because of that, there was a lot of learning about how to communicate better with, with my peers, with my, uh, you know, uh, workers, with my directors and art directors, and so on and so forth. So that's why I put that one in there. It's a huge thing. Even if you aren't working in these teams of like a few hundred working on one game or one movie, even if you just paint paintings and sell paintings, I if if I could ask, Andy Warhol, how successful do you think you would be if you weren't a good communicator? I wonder what he would say. How many soup can prints would he sell if he was not a good communicator?
Mm.
Even though it pushed the envelope, it was very innovative for print and everything. Um, I wonder. I don't think you'd do very well. So even as a fine artist where you paint a painting, sell a painting, communication, hey, it's still a very big thing.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned a couple weeks ago about practicing and getting out and talking to people in small ways if it's something that you struggle with. Even just telling a friend about your art piece so you can kind of warm up to talking about your art. I mean, there's just a ton of different ways to get some practice in too. It's very important.
That's a great point. And on top of that, as you're telling whatever person your art piece and getting their reaction, listen to their words and watch them as well. Because so much of our communication, it's like there's double meanings, there's a totally different meaning than what are the words coming out of our mouth, things like that. Like there's certain things that you would feel awkward telling your boss. There'd be, certain things, even if it's the absolute truth, right? There'd be certain things that you might not want to tell your boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, whatever. So it's really important to practice that. And it's something that, I don't even know if you can master it at all, uh, but you can definitely get a lot better at it. Let's go to number 4, shall we? So number 4 is put importance on preparation and the fundamentals. I want to put both of these down because I find that they are equally important. You know what? A lot of us, and I would dare to say over 90% of us, maybe even 100%, can paint better, can draw better than how we draw now, than how we paint now. It's just that we paint the wrong things at the wrong times, thinking about the wrong things in the wrong order. Uh, if we are able to kind of think about the right things, concentrate on the right things at the right time, um, then you would have a lot better art. So, what do I mean by this? I mean, like, okay, well, think about the right things at the right times. What do you mean about this? Well, in the beginning, are you just starting? Are you just starting to draw without having an idea in mind? Are you um, are you drawing long enough before you come up with an idea? The whole entire idea of warming up your vocal cords, warming up your basketball skills before you actually start playing the game, right? Are you practicing your drawing? Are you warming up your drawing skills before you start committing to an idea, to a composition, perhaps? Are you doing as many sketches and as many studies and things that a master would do before they painted their painting. I think we talked about this before. Like, if they're doing it and they have master level skills, why are we not doing it? Right? When you think about it like that, it's
Yeah.
awesome because it becomes a must. Like, you gotta put the emphasis on preparation. And the other thing is, if you've been listening to the interviews for the past 10 years, too many, way too many of these hardcore, amazing, masters of what they do, my artistic heroes, the art community's artistic heroes, too many of these people, they emphasize the importance of fundamentals, right? And they emphasize it so much. And it's like, uh, do you, the listener, care about the fundamentals as much as they do? Because why shouldn't we? They already have such incredible skills. It would only make sense that we would care about these things as much or even more so than these masters that have such high skills.
I think that I would love to hear more about the preparation part from you, if you don't mind for a second. Because I think a lot of us feel like we have to think about what we're going to draw when we sit down to draw versus maybe thinking about what we want to draw throughout our day to day life. And I, as much as anybody, could always use tips on how to do that better.
Well, one is keeping an idea journal,
Mm-hmm.
right, where you scribble in ideas that you can thumb through later. That's one of like the best things to do, not only for great ideas, but looking back, right? When
Mm-hmm.
you 3 years from now, 5 years from now, you look back at this idea journal. It isn't a big cringe like, oh man, I can't believe I drew it like that. I can't believe I painted it like that, because that's not the important thing in that idea journal. You're not trying to show skills, you're not trying to show whatever. You are just plopping down a bunch of ideas. And many of those ideas, 5 years later, they're still pretty good. Right, and then you'll be like, hey, yeah, yeah, I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna do that in ZBrush. I'm gonna do that in whatever. And it's a ugly little scribble, but the idea is good.
Do you feel like you've had any that have come from a really far, like something that resurfaced after years from one of your idea journals?
Many, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's like a remake of an old idea.
Ah.
Uh, one easy one that comes right off the top of my head is the whole entire idea of the ugly duckling. I did my first painting of this ugly duckling um, maybe like 2 or 3 years after or before the second painting that I did. The first one was digital, the second one was acrylic. Um, but
Huh.
yeah, if you always have, because one of the biggest things, and you guys let me know in the comments there, but one of the biggest things nowadays, after you develop certain skills or whatever, one of the biggest things is, do I want to spend that much time on this idea? And if you think no, you're not going to want to paint it, right? So then all of a sudden you stop in your tracks because you don't have a good idea. So that's why I want to put that one in as well. Preparation and fundamentals. Do your preparation well, just like an old master, what you think an old master would do. A lot of times, our sketches, our preliminary sketches, we go full out on these preliminary sketches because we're looking for challenges, we're looking for problems ahead. And so if you just do a loose sketch of it, you won't figure out the problem. You won't discover the problem. You won't figure out how to solve the problem. A lot of times it's through mucking through it in this very ugly way. And then looking at it afterwards and going, wow, you know what? I could have did that in 4 simple steps instead of taking 80. Uh, a lot of that kind of stuff will happen. So when you have the time, it's like preparation, paint the whole painting, and knowing that you're not going to use that painting. Paint the whole painting only to scrap it in the end and paint it over,
Ah.
right? Thinking about how you're going to simplify things, how you're going to make things even better, all the little nuances that you're going to change, you're going to improve. That's what I'm talking about. Like, that's hardcore preparation. Let's go on to the next one here. Next one is invest enough time to see results, right? I feel like this is such a current issue. It's always been an issue, but it's even more current now. Why? Because we have a lot less. I honestly I blame like 90 some odd percent of this on social media itself, because
Mm,
our attention span has grown so little, right? If a video is over 10 minutes and you have no idea, you don't know who that person is that made the video and stuff, you definitely think about it. I think about it. I'm like, 10 minutes? Geez, do I really want to spend that much time? Um, and then that also translates over to trying to learn something. Oh, yeah, I'll
yeah.
give it a couple months. And if I'm not a master in 2 months, I'm going to quit. It's not for me. Too many of these things, it's like when I think about the biggest leaps and jumps in my career, in my skill set, it was through months, not 2 months, like, a good 5, 6 months of working hardcore. And if
Yeah.
you aren't working crazy hardcore, yeah, how long is it going to take? There was this really good question that somebody brought up in the chat, which actually
Jane.
went pretty much to the very top, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Jane here said, I find it hard to get over the impatience to master art. I know it takes time, but I just can't help wanting to make good art already. Any advice?
I hear you, Jane. I hear you big time. And that is kind of like, that's the price of admission, I think. That's a good big part of why people say art is hard. It's not actually hard. It's hard to make that decision of putting in that much time. Like, I'm cool with putting in that much time. And that's why it is so cool that any artist is actually an artist, because we have to go through years, so many years of drawing ugly stuff that we know is ugly. You remember, maybe, sometimes we're still in that mode, and you guys can kind of talk amongst yourselves in the chat, but like sometimes we're still in that mode where we don't want to really compare ourselves to the best in the world. We don't want to compare ourselves to the artists in that studio that we would actually want to work at. We don't compare ourselves to the art in Star Wars, these art books, even though that is our dream job, to work on a Star Wars movie, right? Because we go, oh, well, we're not in that category. We're in this beginner's category. And
It's
I'm cool with being really great as a beginner. Well, that's not going to take you to your destination. That's going to take you to a place that you don't even care to go. You don't care to be a professional all your life, or a beginner all your life, I should say. You care to be a high level professional, I hope, to really go after your dreams, because you can absolutely get there. You can absolutely get there. The hardest part, Jane, is just committing to it. Just committing to the idea of, okay, this is the price I have to pay. Patience. All right.
absolutely. I that brings to mind this idea that that really there's some sort of end place that you're going to show up at one day, and you're going to awesomely be happy as an artist. And just, yesterday you were on your journey and you were struggling to get there, and today you got a major movie deal and you're going to walk a red carpet that night, and you're going to paint five awesome things before breakfast, and it's just going to be a completely different life. And it's, what I learned from talking to people like you, Bobby, is that your struggles and your challenges, while you may be way further along professionally, that's an understatement, it's also that we still struggle with a lot of the same things. So to me, when someone is a little bit impatient, to get there, to arrive somewhere, I think it's important to know that like a lot of the things that you struggle with, you're going to struggle with continually. You're always, even when people start looking at your paintings and saying, "Oh, these are so awesome," you're still going to have those feelings of wishing that you could do better. So some of that you just kind of have to get used to, I think. Does that make sense, Bobby?
I love it, Matt. You couldn't have said it more, in a better way. Uh, this is the thing. None of us, or let's say a huge high majority, okay, in the 90 percentile of us will not be satisfied from any painting that we do.
Yep.
And this is what I mean. You might be satisfied temporarily, but hitting that mark, that painting, and then being okay with the rest of your life, kind of thing, with any other paintings that you do for the rest of your life, there is no such thing. What happens after you. Okay, you know what? Here's a good story. I was I was in New York a few weeks ago watching the Macy's Day Parade. There's four big balloons coming down the street, and it's of these characters that I did with Masay Seki for Christmas Chronicles, this film on Netflix. The director is with us. Clay Cadis is with us, sitting with us, and the movie just opened on Netflix that day. I had the most interesting conversation with him, and it was about all these other people going, "What are you going to do next, Clay? What are you going to do
Mm.
next?" The movie just came out. Give him a break. Give him a few days to just enjoy it. And I'll tell you one other. When Kay and I, we won our Emmy for Nico and the Sword of Light, which, by the way, season 2, December 28th, in 11 days. It's coming
Ooh,
out.
that's
So,
soon.
yeah, very excited about that. But, anyways, won an Emmy, right? Now, I'm totally like humble bragging right now, I guess, slipping that in. But the important thing about the story is that very day, you know how many people ask me, "What are you going to do next?"
Oh man.
Right? That's how it is, though. That's how it is. You have a lot of parents out there probably have this kind of thing where it's like, how long did you have your baby, Matt, before any of your in laws or your parents went, "So you're going to have another? Are you going to have another?"
Yeah, we almost got out of the hospital before that started. Yeah, I get it totally.
So it's
Almost.
it's totally not about the result. It's totally not about the result because you will never find a result that will satisfy that hunger for more. What's next? That's what everybody's going to want to know. And if that's your focus, if that's what's important to you, then you won't actually enjoy the accomplishments that you have. So, for everybody out there,
Yeah.
celebrate your accomplishments. Take the time to celebrate it.
That's a great perspective. Would you say that also is something that would help people in their practice? Not just celebrating and being in the present. I'm sorry, my question got a little mixed up. So, whereas a lot of people are always looking to the next thing, what am I going to achieve? Where am I going to go? What's next? What's next? If you're a little more present minded in your practice, I assume that helps a lot more as well. You're not looking to land the job, you're looking to master the skill in front of you, right?
Yeah. Like it's all about the journey.
Yeah.
And for absolutely, it's totally not for me it's never about getting the job, right? Because that's too much pressure, and it's a lot more pressure Because we have no control over it. If we
Ah.
really, if you want to turn down the stress, allow yourself to say, okay, yeah, I hire myself or I don't hire myself. Then a lot of that stress goes away. And that stress is really there because of the fact that we don't have control over it. All right, let's go on to the next one here. And
Yeah.
and last little thought on that is if you kind of focused all about the results, um, think about how much pressure you would have if you're doing something much bigger now. Because most of these people that are so stressed about these results, it's about these smaller things. It's not even close to their ultimate artistic goal,
Hmm.
right? So say you got to work on Game of Thrones all of a sudden, and you might get a chance to do whatever on Game of Thrones now, or you get a test for Game of Thrones and now you're working on it. How much stress you would have, right? If you were stressed over trying to do some test to work on Paw Patrol, which, it's a good show, lots of little kids like it, but it might not be our, artistic goal. How stressed would you be trying to get on something that you really love, that you
That's an
really, really
excellent point.
love?
That is an excellent point. Do you want to go to some more questions here?
Oh yeah, sorry. Let me
No.
let me get through these last bunch, okay? So this one, it's a little faded. Let me read it for you. Don't get too caught up in followers. And that is something
Ah.
that, it's important to have followers nowadays, especially nowadays, but it's like fire. You don't want too much of it because they'll
Ah.
get out of control. Let's go on to the next one. After that, indicate materials. This is for a lot of beginners, their portfolios. Look at your portfolio. Okay, if you covered up everything that indicates what that material is, can you just tell by how you painted it? So if it isn't in the shape of a teapot and you looked at a section of it, would you know that it's made out of whatever, steel, copper, whatever it's supposed to be? Right? If it's a furry thing and you covered up the fact that the silhouette of a furry jacket and you just looked at a section of it, could you still tell it's furry? Could you tell that skin is skin and different from how you painted the plastic around, the plastic element near the skin? Um, Indicate materials. That's
So,
something that's a common thing with
do
people.
you think people just kind of smooth out their paintings? Is that
They
what you mean?
generally the mistake is they paint everything the exact same way. They paint plastic the same way that they paint skin,
Ah.
and they paint trees the same way that they paint plastic. Last one, is your art memorable? Now, this one is going towards beginner professionals as well, because a lot of beginner professionals, they're still so concentrated on the fundamentals. Like, yes, fundamentals are super important. That was literally number 4 on our list. However, it's not good enough just to have your fundamentals because in the end, it should be memorable. If your stuff isn't memorable, will that play a part in you not getting as many jobs? Of course. Of course it would. So that's the last one. And I know these might sound kind of obvious, but as well, I'm putting these on here because these are the common ones that I see, the common mistakes. All right. So that was a whole bunch. I hope everybody got something out of that. And if you have your own kind of beginner mistakes that we didn't mention, write them in the chat. I'm sure people would love to see.
Absolutely. We all have no shortage of mistakes.
Yeah.
um, so you want? I will ask a question here. Luck Charm asks, "What this is the most popular question at the top? Don't forget you can upvote questions as well as adding them in here. What's a dead giveaway that someone's work is amateur? Uh, do you think there's an X factor that makes someone an expert?
Yeah. I could tell you because you ask any professional, any good professional, they can tell if somebody's an amateur just by one drawing. Even if it's by a sketch that isn't fully done, a lot of times we can still tell. And the reason that we can tell is because we look at what your intention is with the painting, with each brushstroke, with each uh, mark with the pencil, whatever it might be. We look at your intention and we ask ourselves, did this person succeed with their intention? And was it done in a smart way?
So
That's
that's
that's it
why
right there.
uh, like a simple line drawing by Matisse or someone like that still is an amazing piece of art because it looks so purposeful, right? Like you really can tell that the goal was to do an elegant, simple drawing. It wasn't chicken scratch where he was unsure of himself or anything like that. And I think that's important. That confidence is that makes a lot of sense.
Well, and the thing is, it's like there's some situations where maybe the person's more illustrative, that kind of thing. You see this in a lot of more animated kind of projects than not. So, for example, in some Pixar art books, you see some stuff that looks not very structural, right? Very kind of almost playful and childlike sometimes.
Mm.
Uh, but was their intention to make something super structural? No, because Don Shank can do things that are super structural. I'm sure he's a great artist, but that's, and I don't know. I haven't talked to him about it, but like a lot of his cutout kind of illustration kind of stuff, that's not the purpose, right? The
Hmm.
purpose is the feeling, the playfulness of it. Um, and so that's why I would still consider that good art because it hit its intentions.
That makes sense to me. If there's a lot of uncertainty behind it, it doesn't really land very well at all.
Yeah, if you're trying to make an edge of a box and I see like seven different lines in there, one getting progressively darker than the other, then
Mm,
I would go, okay, that person was trying to draw a straight line from here to there and wasn't very successful at it.
that's a very solid example right there. Another question here. I like this question a lot. Anonymous. What is the difference between realizing you're not meant for something versus giving up or not trying hard enough?
That is such a good question. That is such a good question. That's something that I remember thinking about, especially in the beginning. Here's how you, and it's not the easiest answer, but here's how you kind of determine if you should stop. Okay, if you got to think about why do I feel like I should stop? If it's due to fear, don't stop because we've all been there. If it's due to logic, keep going. Or sorry, if if it's if it's due to logic, then that's when you should stop. When it's due to fear, and I'm like, well, there's not enough. Everybody says there's not enough character designer jobs out there, so I should stop, right? That it could be true. You want to really think it through. Is this logical? If it's logical, then I'll stop. If it's not logical, I'll keep going. And so, okay, well, are there new character designers out there? Yeah, there are. Are there new breaking out, like big time, new kind of superstar character designers out there that weren't there 8 years ago? Yeah, there are. So then, is it logical that there's not enough room for one more? No, it's not. Keep going, right? And if it's like, well, uh, I'm trying to do this one thing, and this one thing is only being done by one company, and they are in Zimbabwe and they speak a different language in this remote part of Zimbabwe. and like so on and so forth, then it might be like, okay, logically, if I did want to pursue this, I would have to sacrifice this and this and this. I would have to do this and this and this, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to stop.
What would you say about someone feeling like they just don't have the fundamental skills, and they feel like that might be logical, but maybe it's just a fear that they can't get that good or something like that?
Right. So then we have to think logically, is that true? Is that really true? Like you cannot do it? Or are you like if you are somewhat of an average person or above, well, there's tons of average people that become very above average just over time, so like that to me is not logical. But if you are blind and if you're, I don't really know what the best example of this would be, but I
Yeah.
would say, yeah, if you were blind, then I would think twice about being an artist, uh, at least in the conventional way. Perhaps sculpting would be a little better,
Yeah. Wow.
something like that. Yeah, think logically. If you only have 2 months to go from zero to getting into Pixar, I would be like, no, that's not logical.
But that's only in the most extreme situations where if you have any promise at all, then there's always going to be some reason to keep going or to try a little harder, unless you just have these hard stops in your life, right?
Yeah, but also it's like that to me is kind of like umbrella by the whole entire thing of is it logical?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes
Because there's
sense.
many different things that become a reason to stop, and they all follow, they all fall under the umbrella of like, is this logical?
Okay. Well, this is a good question that just popped up. Kind of ties in when you said, "Do someone have if someone had 2 months to get ready to go to Pixar, probably wouldn't happen." Um, Dayon asks, "If someone had a year to self-teach themselves how to draw from beginner level to get a job at the end of that year, what would that curriculum look like?"
Wow, that's a big challenge. So I don't know what level this person is drawing at. Even if they're beginner level, there's all sorts of different types of beginner levels. Like, can you draw a straight line? A
Yeah.
lot of people, they
Right.
can't draw a straight line. Can you draw a circle? Can you
Yeah.
draw ellipses? So on and so forth. But one thing that I have been thinking about in my head, it's been stirring around, is I talk a lot about studying. We've had this conversation before as well, where I talk about painting something, 4 or 5 times. And you just keep
Hmm.
painting it over and over. And then you try to do the mirror image, and then so on and so forth, and getting more and more, straying more and more away from it, right? Becoming more and more creative with your studies. I was thinking of actually doing that, right? And just putting it online the next
Oh
time
wow.
I tackle another painting. And that would go on for months because that's what I do.
And
So
it would just show the journey from something complete study all the way to now something that's completely yours.
yeah, yeah. And I,
Wow.
I
That would
feel
be awesome.
like if I did that, then we can really get into that idea of like, okay, I don't have that much, like I'm really trying to learn at an accelerated rate. And what I want to show people is that it isn't by trying to tackle as many things as possible. It isn't about painting as many different paintings as possible. It's actually taking it slower and making sure that you absorb information and you have new information that's yours now. You own this, you understand it. That's the best way to get ahead.
Well, it kind of goes back to what you said earlier about investing time and how our attention spans are so much smaller now, so much shorter now, that you want to know what you can accomplish with a 5-minute sketch or a 10-minute sketch, but what if you did a deep dive like that? How much more could you learn from such an experience? That would be awesome to watch.
It'll probably be super boring. That's what I kind of think. But
That's my
uh,
nerdy self showing, I guess. I guess.
yeah, like people are literally gonna watch paint dry kind of thing. Because it is a lot of like looking, not even doing anything, and just looking at it and trying to
Ah,
understand instead of trying to go as fast as you can. But
and that'd be an
anyhow,
interesting thing. That would be an interesting thing to do as part of a stream, though, where you're just looking at the painting for a little while, but then you could at least like, uh, if there's that sense of time there for the viewers and the people participating, and not just images that you're sharing with us,
hmm,
then it would be like, wow, Bobby just spent 30 minutes looking at that painting, and you could really experience that. I'm just thinking out loud.
like
Uh,
doing a 4 hour stream, as you just see this like painting just slowly come together.
People do it, right? I don't know. It's something.
Yeah,
Um,
and luck charm, this isn't a month-long study, just to let you know. If it is, it's because it's been condensed down to a month-long study. Ideally, I like to, if it's a relatively challenging painting, I want to study that thing for like 3 months at least, generally.
wow, a whole season, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's something. Let's ask another question. Um, okay, this is a good one. Serentropy asked, "What are the list of elements in a drawing you consider when you declare a drawing finished?"
Uh, ooh, that's that's a tricky question. A lot of times it's like perhaps the question is the thing that needs to be questioned.
Huh?
It depends on the intent of your piece of art. Once you meet your intent, then you're good. So it's not like you're looking for a list. You could be looking for a list, but each painting might have a different list.
Maybe another way to look at it would be, what sticks out to you as unfinished when you see something? Maybe
That
even in your own work.
Okay, so again, that to me, that sounds like, well, again, it depends on the intent.
Yeah,
If you're
exactly.
just drawing something like a storyboard, then there's a lot of things that you would forgive. Than if you're doing a illustration for the cover of a book or something. So yeah, it kind of goes back to intent, but I'll give you a little checklist. Let's go for a little checklist of things
All
to
right.
think about when you're done a painting. And you might not care about some of these things because of the, intent of the drawing, but at least you could check it over and see if you want to care about it. So, number one uh, is it structurally sound? And one of the best ways is just flip it, the mirror image of it. If it looks off in the mirror image, it's not because your drawing is meant to look the other way.
Right.
You know, that's
That's
not,
true.
it has to look good in both ways. It has
One
to.
I have to paint almost halfway in both ways. Like mirror my drawing and then paint almost 50% on each side. It's crazy.
That's a great way to go about it. Another one is looking for tangents. You know, uh, if you have one element, maybe there's like a hill, and then there's somebody peering over the hill, and their chin totally just matches that line on
Yep.
the side of the hill, then that's a bad tangent, right? So you want to look out for that. You want to look out for clarity, and that doesn't mean that everything needs to be clear. It means looking at if everything is as clear as it should be. Because some things you don't want that clear. Some things you want it fuzzy, a soft shadow, going into darkness. You don't want to notice it right away. Instead, you want to notice the person holding the candle in the dark hallway. You don't want to notice the monster behind them just yet,
Yeah.
right? So you're going to want more clarity with that. Um, so, and the emotional impact, that's another one. How do you want the person to feel? Because that is the ultimate goal for pretty much all of our art uh, is to create some sort of an impact to the viewer, because if it doesn't have an emotional impact, it will not be the favorite of anybody. And that's a
Wow.
pretty good big statement to say, but when you think about it, it's absolutely true. If it doesn't make anybody feel anything, it will for sure not be their favorite.
Wow. I feel like I make that mistake where I try to see what I can accomplish with my skills or with a rendering of something, and I don't think enough about what I want the viewer to feel when they look at it. You're like, oh man, can I make this look realistic? Or, can I get this lighting effect to work just right? Or you even get hung up in the technical details of the painting, and you lose sight of the fact that people need to laugh or smile or cry or be scared when they look at the art.
Learning all that technical stuff is just so that we are able to express our ideas in a more accurate way, in a
Mm,
more like, clear way of how we intend the art to be. And that's what we have to kind of remember. Uh, but the highest level of art is making somebody feel something.
wow. So important. Another question. If creativity trumps technical skill, it's kind of in line with what we're talking about. How do you get better at creativity?
Consciously, I'd say. Consciously trying to get better at creativity. We actually talked about this in the last
Yeah.
stream. Remember, I was
Yeah.
looking at the my different paintings in the
Yes.
back here, and I was thinking about. I think last time I had more lights on, so it's more reflective. And I was thinking, what if those were puddles? All these
Yeah.
different puddles, and these little routes between, these little routes of land in between the puddles. How could that kind of turn into something? It's like always be on. Um, I know I have a friend that constantly looks at everything and is thinking in their head, okay, if this was in Photoshop in the HSB slider, hue, saturation, and black and value slider, what number would everything be at?
Oh my
And that's
goodness.
his thing. He's like, yeah, that's like a 67H, 27S, and, such and such B. Yeah, just always be on. You can get better at these things. As you keep thinking in that way, uh, from what I've heard, anyways, I'm no scientist, but those neural pathways, they get stronger, right? And it becomes easier to kind of think in that way and having your thoughts going down that path as you do it more and more. Just like a
You know,
path walking through a field. You know,
absolutely. I've been practicing that since you said it last week. And I was fascinated when you did that on the wall about the paintings behind you and made them into a whole new painting. That was awesome. So when you're going around doing your Christmas shopping, or you just go take a walk outside, there are so many hundreds of opportunities to imagine a painting or imagine a scenario or look at a family rushing around the mall, and what if they were a family of bears and what they would look like or something like that. And I just wanted to add to that it is a muscle. Like, it's hard for me to just try it for the first couple of times, but it starts to get easier. And for you, you just turned it on like a light switch last week, and it just comes automatically in that way. So it gets there eventually. That's cool.
yeah, practice makes perfect, for
Yeah.
sure.
Another question here from Yeti Shaman. Can the skills of Master Kim Jong Ji uh, yeah, can his skills be obtained through mystical means like visualization, meditation, or automatic drawing? Or should I simply sell my soul? I don't know if you're going to be able to sell your soul for Kim Jong Ji skills, but what do you say, Bobby?
Well, through my own interviews with him, through my own interactions with him, through watching other interviews, about Kim Jong Gi, it definitely seems like he's convinced that it's a lot of hard work. You know,
Mhm.
he does mention talent, so I'm sure that plays a little part in it for sure. But this is what I know of Master Kim Jung Gi, right? He is always drawing. Everybody
Mhm.
says this in the most epic kind of meeting of like all these incredible artists in one room. Who's the one drawing in the corner? It's not even in the corner. He's probably surrounded by a whole bunch of people, but it's always Kim Jung Gi. He's always drawing, literally always drawing. When he was taking a break from his drawing workshop in Toronto for the Schoolism live workshops, he was drawing. He was taking a break from his drawing to draw.
It's crazy. I watched a video with him a couple of days ago, and the entire time he was doing the interview, I think he spit out like a half dozen pieces of awesome art. And it was like a 15-minute interview, and he's just drawing constantly. He said he draws like he breathes. If that's any comparison for how much any of us are drawing, we should be drawing more.
I believe it. I believe it. When you're on it that much, then you'll become great at it. You'll become phenomenal at it. And that to me is one of the coolest things about art because that door is always open for us. We can walk through that door and make those decisions to like walk through that door if we wanted to. It's not like this unreachable thing. That opportunity is there for you, for all of us right now. Just got to go down that path.
Go for it. Go
That's
down that.
that's one of like the most kind of awesome things about art as well, where it's like we can all do it. It's hard, but we can all do it.
Yeah,
And that's fantastic.
it is fantastic. Let's ask another question here. A couple of people want to know if there will be a workshop in Berlin in 2019. Thanks, Christian.
Yes, Berlin, it's gonna be awesome. Holy smokes. You know what? I like to have these streams be something where I can give little heads up, little
We hear it here
Easter
first.
eggs. Yeah, little like here
Yeah.
here first. I will give you the lowdown about Berlin right now. It's going to be happening April 27th to 28th, 2019. And who's coming? Nathan Fowkes is coming. He's going to be teaching something. Loish is coming as well. She's going to be
Wow.
teaching something. She's going to be teaching two workshops, one on art and the other one on social media and marketing, which is, I'm so excited about that. She has
Yeah.
over 1 million followers.
It's crazy.
Um, Louis Del Carmen, incredible. He's awesome. We went to Chengdu, China, not too long ago. Gave a phenomenal workshop. John Navarez, another one where I've been to his workshops, phenomenal. And Luc Demarchier, another incredible painter, incredible artist. So there you go. A little sneak peek on what's happening. We'll be
Berlin
making an
2019.
announcement soon.
Okay, great. This is a question about Lightbox about ticket cost, but um, more importantly, maybe, excuse me, Sarah, it's not more important, but when do you think we'll know more details about Lightbox?
Tickets will go on sale early March. So that you can kind of put in the bank, put on your calendars, early
Okay.
March, look out for it. Uh, how much will tickets be? They'll be a lot cheaper than the other ones. That's what we're aiming to do. We're aiming to do
Yeah.
something that appreciates the artists. That's what the event is all about, is appreciating the artists and the art community and everything. And that to us also means that it needs to be accessible. It needs to be affordable and accessible by everybody. And that's what we're working very hard to do. So you'll
Couldn't be
know
a
the final
faster.
ticket prices. You'll know the ticket prices in March.
Sounds good. Awesome. Thanks. Um, Time for another question here. Prashan asked, what do you draw when you warm up?
Well, there's different ways, right? So in the beginning of this one, what was I going to paint? I had no idea. So I just started off with a bunch of squares and or rectangles. I just started filling them in with two different tones. That's something that I've done in the past, and it works pretty well. I don't assume that the first two or three or four little squares will be of anything of use. I'm just trying to warm up.
Did you
Um,
kind of think you were going to do a holiday themed image when you started that?
I forget.
Yeah.
I actually forget. I do remember that I started this painting just going, okay, I don't know what I'm gonna do, so I'm just gonna make a grid and start making different little compositions, different little shapes until I see something
Cool.
that I kind of like.
All right. Yeah, that's a great way to warm up those thumbnails for sure. I like it. Um, Another question here from someone not trying to be a spammer was their name. Employers encourage me to keep emailing until they respond, since many emails simply go unopened by studios. At what point have you emailed too much? When is the number of emails too many?
That's another one of those depends answers.
Yeah.
And the reason why it depends, I feel like it depends on a couple things. If you're if you're emailing back the same thing, right? Then it gets to become too many emails very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very quickly. But if you're emailing the first time, you're going, you're saying, "Here's my portfolio. Can I get a job?" And then you don't hear back. The second time, don't go, "Here's my portfolio. Can I get?" Maybe you say, "Hey, I'm in the neighborhood. I'm coming from Istanbul. Can I just drop by the studio?"
Mm.
You know, then you don't get an answer, and you write another one and you go, "Hey, it's me from Istanbul. I'm coming. I don't even need to meet anybody. I made this little thing for you guys. I just wanted to drop it off at the front desk. I hope that's okay." You're always switching it up, right? And it could go the other direction as well. If they keep saying yes to stuff, then you ask for more stuff. So it could be starting off, "Hey, just in town. I just wanted to come by and give you this gift." And then they say, "Yeah, sure, no problem. That sounds great. When are you coming by?" And then you go, "Well, I was thinking of coming by around 11, but maybe 11:30, and if anybody can, we can have some lunch or something. That'd be fantastic." You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm doing there?
Very
Right?
smooth.
So it can work the other way around as well.
Very smooth indeed.
And there we go, everybody.
Yeah.
Let's kind of wrap it up, shall we? It's
Sounds
time
good.
goes by super fast when you're having fun, and when you're having fun with friends, then it goes by even faster. So, thank you to the community for checking out for spending time with us, and biggest shout out goes to my buddy Matt Johnson for always
Ah.
helping me with these streams. Thank you so much, Matt.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you, Bobby.
Right on. And so that's it. Thanks, everybody. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See
Bye,
you guys
guys.
next time. Now, a huge part of the success of this channel and everything that I do is because of you, the listener. So thank you. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and then press the notification button, because that way you'll get instant notification the next time I put out a new video. Thank you very much.